Part 31. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Ganxiao. Chapter 312. Congratulations to the player, the rewards for completing a major scenario exploration mission are being settled. The main storyline of the script is one undercurrent. The mission is completed and 60 script points are obtained. Scenario Main Mission 2, Zhongyuan Tribulation Mission completed, 60 script points obtained. Main Line 3 of the script Cut the Grass and Roots, the task is completed, and 60 script points are obtained. Main Line 4 of the script Synthetic Immortal Treasure, the task is completed, and 60 script points are obtained. Script Branch Task 1, Buddha Head Case, the task is completed, and 70 script points are obtained. Script Side Task 2, Follow-up of the Buddha Head Murder Case has been completed, and 70 script points have been obtained. Su Tong now has no shortage of script points, so he just skipped this part and started looking at the harvest. You have obtained the special achievement Crazy Demon title, please check it yourself. If you have obtained the special achievement Abandoned of the Old Era, please check it yourself. You have obtained the prop card, Master of Colorful Play, please check it yourself for details. You have obtained the prop card, Guardian, please check it yourself for details. You have obtained the prop card. Please inquire for details about Shadowless Power. You have obtained the prop card. Please check Basic Boxing Technique Encyclopedia for details. You have obtained the prop card, Basic Kick Technique, please check it yourself for details. You have obtained the prop card Basic Fingering Encyclopedia, please check it yourself for details. You get the basics of prop cards. Congratulations to the player for completing this major script mission and receiving a very high rating. An additional 700 script points will be awarded. Congratulations to the player for successfully completing the big scenario mission Retrograde in Hard Times and receiving 3 additional silver badges and 1 gold badge. Congratulations to the player, you have successfully obtained the legendary item card Immortal Treasure. Because of the interference of certified players, you receive corresponding privilege compensation. You can choose one of the 5 script worlds that are beneficial to you and become the next script. You have opened the mysterious soul coffin, and you have gained a privilege. In the next script world, your identity will receive additional mysterious power bonuses and you will have a wealth identity. Su Tong was almost dazzled by the series of basic encyclopedias. Suddenly, he felt like he got rich overnight, which diluted the pain in his heart a lot. Su Tong looked at each line by line. The rewards this time are really too generous. To put it bluntly, apart from the things I got in the script world, the rewards alone are equivalent to the sum of the 3 small script worlds in front of me. Especially the number of prop cards. Although almost 90% of them are so-called basic collections, the advantage is that they are abundant. Su Tong feels that he can become a full-time master at this moment. Oops. Well, it's a bit premature for the master to speak, but a full-time apprentice is definitely fine. Su Tong temporarily ignored these so-called basic encyclopedias. He estimated in his mind that these so-called basic encyclopedias were probably related to the strangers he killed. Put it aside for now and study it slowly at your leisure. The focus is still on the 3 prop cards and titles. Let's start with the titles. Because title skills are both powerful and useless. Some title effects are really ordinary, but you just can't throw them away, and they still occupy one of your slots. Therefore, a good title skill is even more important than the item card. Crazy Demon. Your voice of murder spread throughout the world, and your arrogant attitude became a nightmare in people's hearts. Active Skill 1, Chapter of Killing. After activating this title, you will receive special power blessings. Every time you kill someone, you can briefly gain a layer of blood resentment through the killing. Each layer of blood resentment can temporarily increase your strength by 5 points, up to 10 layers. Duration, 40 minutes. Cooling time, none. Side effects, please experience it yourself. Abandoned people of the old era. In this era, you are destined to be an outcast. No matter what you do, you will not be recognized by the world, and you will be isolated by the entire world. Active Skill 1, Sina. After activating the title, your defense will be increased by 50% when facing mysterious powers such as the 9 level in the Old Age tradition. Duration, unlimited. After effects, when you activate the title, you will sense the malice in the world. Looking at these two titles, Su Tong's brows almost knitted together. The title Crazy Demon was not bad, as it could temporarily increase the killing rate. But the abandoners of the old era are still useless in his eyes. He has a dark constitution. As long as he controls his rhythm, his defense against strange spells is quite strong in the night sky or in dark environments. But the title is like this. It cannot be discarded and it occupies a space for you. Su Tong can only put these problems aside for the time being. When he enters the exhibition, he will ask Yang Zixuan to see if he can do anything. Then he looked at the 3 prop cards. Su Tong could probably think of the origins of these 3 prop cards, Master of Colorful Play, Guardian, and Force of No Form just by looking at their names. Colorful Opera Master. 1 minute on stage, 10 years of hard work off stage. In these 10 years of cold and summer, I have developed a pair of skillful hands. Passive Skill 1, Skillful Hands. The holder's control ability increases by 30%. Active Skill 1, Colorful Play Mystery. It consumes 12 script points. After activation, you will gain a color step. You can enter a semi-invisible state while moving and leave an afterimage to confuse the opponent. Active Skill 2, Bakesatai. It consumes 30 script points. After activation, you can build a stage within 30 meters around you. On the stage, your control ability will be increased by 40%, and all control skill limit will be lifted. Note, there is no drama after the 8 immortals, but the phoenix's roar in the capital shocked the world. No wonder. Su Tong looked at this prop card and felt relieved. He understood why Jianshu was so eager to control paper. With this skill and paper control, he was even more powerful. After all, paper figures can be easily made, but 1,000-hand zombies are not something that can be easily carried around. But now that I have gotten this prop card, I can find a chance to experiment and see if it is really as powerful as I thought. Immediately, he looked at another item card, Phaseless Power. Formless Power. God has no form, and the law is like this. Therefore, all phenomena have no corresponding form, and all phenomena have no form. Passive Skill 1, No Phase. The holder is no longer subject to any conflicts with the training system. Active Skill 1, All Things Day and Night. Each activation requires 40 script points. After activation, you can use the introduction to temporarily transform your own power. Each conversion time must not exceed 3 hours. Cooling time, 1 day. Note, this skill requires a spellcaster. For example, if you have a dark constitution, you can temporarily change your constitution into a light constitution with the help of certain items with light power. Seeing this prop card, Su Tong's eyes lit up. This thing was almost tailor-made for him. He was still worried about the dark physique getting stronger and stronger, causing his combat effectiveness to drop sharply during the day. Now it's better. The critical moment is enough to help you turn things around. What a baby. Su Tong grinned innocently, and when he finally looked at the Guardian, the smile on his face finally faded away. It's not that there's anything wrong with the entries on the prop cards. It is the source of this prop card, because this prop card is most likely related to the Fool. Thinking of the Fool's honest face, Su Tong's heart felt like a needle pricking his heart. Protector. Great brave men are mostly nameless. Passive Skill 1, Guardian. When teammates appear within 30 meters, Your mental toughness increases by 25%. Passive skill 2, Brave. When your teammate dies, you gain 40% increase in all attributes. Active skill 1, Righteousness. It consumes 30 script points. After activation, when there are more than 2 teammates within 30 meters of you, the damage you receive will be shared equally. Su Tong looked at the prop card, and after a brief silence, he silently put it away. At this time, the dark scene in front of him gradually disappeared. Su Tong opened his eyelids and found Gao Zhou sitting on a chair nearby with a cigarette lit in his hand. Seeing Su Tong appear, Gao Zhou didn't think much about it, but he could tell that he was in a bad mood. Su Tong was also in a bad mood. The two looked at each other, and Gao Zhou took Su Tong to find a roadside supper. No one said any nonsense about comforting each other. We are all adults, and we should bear the pain in our hearts. Speaking out would only feel hypocritical. After drinking 2 bottles of wine, the two took stock of their harvest. It must be said that in terms of harvest, they definitely made a lot of money this time. If it had been any other time, a big script would have been played and everyone would have sold their lives, but they wouldn't have been able to get this harvest. Gao Zhou sighed. His harvest was naturally far inferior to that of Su Tong, but it was not a minority. Not to mention the script points, the key was that he harvested those corpses and a corpse control technique that was the most important. This corpse control technique is probably related to Thousand Hands. With this corpse control technique, the lost secret skills of their family can be regarded as completed. Together with the corpse of the foreign priest, it was enough to increase his strength a lot in a short period of time. The two of them were able to achieve such a harvest, not entirely because they entered a big script this time, but because the two of them hugged the thigh of Master, the destined protagonist, behind them. In addition, large scripts often require several teams to explore together, and resources will be dispersed. But there were only 2 people entering this time, and with the subsequent arrivals, there were only 7 players, not to mention more than half of them died. The total number of everyone was not enough to form a team. We were just lucky this time. I thought there would be several teams parachuted in after entering. Gao Zhou took a sip of wine and said with a sigh on his face. Su Tong doesn't know whether it's really bad luck, but there are indeed not many people joining the script world this time. Otherwise, if they follow the normal path, they will not only face those strangers and a few scattered players, but several teams. The difference in difficulty can be imagined. By the way, I also have a task in the script world. How about we do it again in the next script world? Gao Zhou looked at Su Tong with bright eyes, obviously having tasted the sweetness. Don't want. However, Su Tong shook his head and refused decisively. He simply told Gao Zhou the reason why he failed to return immediately. When he heard that Jingshao City could actually affect the rules of space, Gao Zhou's face suddenly became unnatural. I have a privilege now. If this privilege can be used, I think it would be better for us to enter the world of small scripts next time and improve our strength as soon as possible. Su Tong took a sip of wine. The strength of Jingshao City made him feel great pressure. This time he tricked the old monk, but he would not have the legs to help him carry it next time. When the two of them were saying this, something suddenly rang in their ears, and they all jumped up from the table. At the same time, a van knocked the table in front of them straight away. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 313. Boom. The huge impact was deafening and made people feel their feet shaking. The van crashed straight into a telephone pole on the side, sending up a cloud of white smoke. Su Tong and Gao Zhou were stunned for a moment. They walked to the car and took a look. The front of the car had been flattened. Gao Zhou opened the deformed door and pulled the driver out and found that the driver was dead. At the same time, a strong smell of alcohol filled the air. Drunk driving. The two looked at each other and could conclude that the driver was just an ordinary person, and he had drunk a lot of alcohol. However, it was too coincidental to hit him at this time because he had not hit him sooner or later. At this time, people eating late-night snacks on the roadside also gathered around. Seeing this, Su Tong pulled Gao Zhou, and the two squeezed out of the crowd and walked out. Do you think it's a coincidence? On the way, Gao Zhou frowned and pondered, but Su Tong didn't take this matter seriously and just regarded it as an accidental incident. Of course, as Su Tong said, he still released Jixiang and asked him to check around to see if there was any abnormality. After Jixiang walked around in a large circle and confirmed that nothing abnormal was found, the two of them didn't think more about it. After the two returned to Gao's house, they took a short rest for a few days. But the strange thing is that they haven't rested well these past few days. Su Tong and Gao Zhou went to have breakfast in the morning. As a result, a naughty kid threw the mineral water on his hand into the oil pan, causing the oil pan to explode on the spot. Fortunately, the two of them hid quickly, otherwise they would have been pockmarked this time. On the way home, a flower pot hanging on the balcony of a family suddenly fell down. Su Tong hurriedly avoided it, but when he ducked back, he was almost hit by a motorcycle and flew out. Fortunately, he had amazing strength. He held down the motorcycle with one hand and pushed the motorcycle to prevent it from hitting him head-on. Of course Su Tong realized something was wrong at this time, but no matter how he checked, he did not find any negative effects on his body, and the accident that occurred was indeed an accident and not intentional. In depression, Su Tong could only stay at Gao's house, but there was a leakage of electricity after taking a bath. Gao Zhou also discovered that as long as he stayed away from Su Tong, those accidents would not happen to him, so now the two of them have to talk on the phone. I think we shouldn't go exploring for the time being. Let's wait until your condition stabilizes. In the video, Gao Zhou looked at Su Tong and said that he planned to ask his father to find a master to ask what the situation was. As for the original agreement to go to Yin Yang Cave to explore, this matter could only be temporarily dropped at this moment. After all, Su Tong is now like an unstable time bomb. Not only is he unlucky, but the people around him will also be unlucky. If they go on an adventure, they may capsize. Fine. Su Tong spread his hands helplessly. He now felt as if his whole body was isolated, not to mention how uncomfortable it was. By the way, the exhibition is coming soon. I plan to go in and buy some things and then retreat. When I come out of retreat, how about we build a team together? Team. Su Tong frowned. When he mentioned this, he couldn't help but think of his good brother. He originally wanted to drag him into the team. Although this guy is a bit violent, in the script world, he is definitely a good team output. It's a pity that there has been no news about this guy since he escaped from the mental hospital. It is not easy to find him at once. Yeah, what are you thinking about? Seeing Su Tong in a daze, Gao Zhou raised his voice and shouted. It's okay, I just thought of a good brother of mine. Su Tong waved his hand and explained casually, then said, I will consider the team matter for now, at least until I find the reason for me, otherwise we will be unlucky all the way when we form a team. Yes, you go to the exhibition and ask. By the way, aren't you familiar with the young lady at the front desk? How about you sacrifice something? Mentioning the front desk, Gao Zhou narrowed his eyes. Although he didn't say anything, men could understand the mean expression. Get out. Su Tong laughed and scolded Gao Zhou, turned off the video, then lay on the bed, called out the props book, looked at the fairy treasures in the props book, and felt a little tangled in his heart. Although Yuan tried his best to swallow the fairy treasure, he didn't know what the result would be after swallowing it. If you swallow the fairy treasure and lose a top item card, then whether the price is worth it remains to be discussed. If you don't let Source swallow the fairy treasure for the time being, and carry the fairy treasure with you, With the blessing of the fairy treasure, the longer you carry it, the more your strength will increase. This is the truth, but people are curious. They say that if everything is reasonable, then the world will be at peace long ago. It is said that curiosity killed the cat. Once this curiosity takes hold, no one can stop it. At this moment, Su Tong kept thinking in his mind. He was in a dilemma. Sometimes having too many treasures was not a good thing. After thinking about it, Su Tong pondered and slapped his thigh. Hey, forget it, let's see what changes you can make after you swallow this thing today. If it's not worth it, there's nothing you can say if there's such a thing again in the future. I won't give you anything to eat, but you will be full once and then full, and I hope you can tell the difference clearly. Su Tong pointed at Source and counted several words, and then gently placed the fairy treasure on Source. Suddenly, his eyes were filled with bright lights, thousands of colors, and auspicious light. What do you want to ask about? Well, the effect of the rotating lights in the dance hall is almost the same. It's a pity that there is no music, and there are no hot girls. You collect mission items, and the prop card Source unlocks a new ability. Following the prompt, Su Tong quickly took a look and saw that there was indeed a new ability in the entry of Source, but it was not the ability of the immortal treasure, but it was called Minjian Kimen. What kind of ability is this? Su Tong's heart skipped a beat, feeling like he was losing blood, so he quickly took a closer look at the entry above. Minjian Kimen. Fate is elusive, but it is like a destiny written long ago in the dark. Those who are not powerful cannot see it, but extraordinary people can know it. Those who understand the fate of destiny will seek good luck and avoid misfortune. Those who do not understand the fate of destiny will have unpredictable life and death. Passive Skill 1, Life Eye. The wearer's eyes can see the person's destiny, please figure it out by yourself. Passive Skill 2, Kimen LV1, Proficiency 0/100. The carrier has a certain probability of changing the fate of others, depending on the target's own luck. Note, what changes is destiny, but what cannot be changed is destiny, so you can take care of yourself. Su Tong carefully examined these two lines of entries, holding his chin in his palm to think about it. It seemed that it was not a loss. He walked to the mirror and took a look. I was immediately shocked by my reflection in the mirror. In the mirror, I saw a small dark cloud on top of my head. There were 5 words on the dark cloud, little bad luck followed by a duration. 60 days. Now that it was over, Su Tong immediately understood why he had been so unlucky recently. Fate is a very strange thing. It's not a negative effect, but it really affects you. No wonder I didn't figure out what was going on after checking it for a long time. Just when Su Tong wanted to take a closer look, he suddenly felt a strong feeling in his heart and subconsciously took a step back. During this step, he vaguely saw that the dark cloud above his head in the mirror had shrunk significantly. More than half of it, even the length of the rest of the trip was shortened by 2 days. Before he could understand what was going on, the wall next to him suddenly exploded, and a large truck crashed into the room in front of Su Tong, destroying most of the entire house. Large pieces of bricks and tiles fell. Su Tong stood there and looked at the fragments of bricks and tiles that kept falling at his feet, but none of them hit him. At the same time, the sound of the prop booklet came to my ears, Kimen Proficiency Add 1. Su Tong suddenly understood in his heart and said in sudden enlightenment, oh, so that's how it is. Chi Men's so-called method of changing destiny cannot directly change something, but it may be able to make oneself lucky to some extent and use lucky methods to change one's unlucky results. After all, you must be unlucky to be hit by a car, but the amazing thing is that the house collapsed and not even a tile fell on you. For you, you have to say that you are lucky. This is only level 1. If this skill can be upgraded, the effect will probably be even more powerful. This couldn't help but remind him of the child with double pupils. If he could upgrade his skills to the top level, would he have abilities like twin pupils? Thinking of this, the corners of Su Tong's mouth gradually raised, and his eyes flashed, like a boy who discovered a treasure. Suddenly, he felt that the immortal treasure in exchange for this ability seemed to be a good deal. What happened? The Gao family was naturally alarmed by such a big movement. Gao Zhou ran over immediately and saw Su Tong standing in the ruins, with a large truck crashing into the house beside him. He hurriedly wanted to step forward, but then he remembered Su Tong. Tong, with his plague-like physique, could only stand back with an embarrassed look on his face and asked loudly, "Are you okay?" "No, of course it's okay." Su Tong smiled brightly and said to Gao Zhou without being affected at all, "Not only am I fine, I also want to find a job." "What?" Gao Zhou once wondered if Su Tong's head had been hit by a brick. People like them still need to work? You can just rob a batch of gold and return to a certain script world, and you can live a life of drunkenness and money making. Where do you need to work? Just when Gao Zhou wanted to ask Su Tong if he was short of money, he still had a lot of cash for him to use first. However, Su Tong took a closer look at Gao Zhou and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Brother, I think you are showing signs of something bad lately." "Gao Zhou, you are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 314. Director Wang, your team has had another strong presence recently. Director Wang, our second division's indicators this year all depend on your team. Director Wang, complete the company's tasks ahead of schedule, and you can travel at public expense at the end of the year. Come on. Okay, Lao Wang, who is already in his 50s, stepped into the door of the company today. The successive greetings from several leaders have already made him smile from ear to ear. He has never known a life insurance company so much. "This is the first time in many years that I have been treated like this." Even when he walked, he looked light and airy, as if he had marshmallows under his feet. But Lao Wang knew very well that the reason why he was valued by many leaders of the company today was precisely because of the young man he recruited in the talent market a week ago. At this moment, Lao Wang clearly remembered that this young man named Su Tong was shy and could not even speak fluently. In Lao Wang's heart, he was a potential customer for the company. Why do I say this? Because insurance companies are always recruiting people, and regardless of your level of education or your background, as long as you are willing, the insurance company will hire you. How can an insurance company support so many people? Hey, this is where the insurance company is smart. There is a basic salary for the first 3 months, and there are tasks for the next 3 months. If the tasks are not completed, not to mention the basic salary, there will be no dime. So the supervisor will ask him to buy himself an insurance at this time, so that he can not only get commissions, but also get the company's basic salary, and he can also complete the tasks, plus the training and understanding in the previous 3 months. At this time, your understanding of insurance is no longer so one-sided. With a slap on the thigh, you bought yourself an insurance policy. In the next few months, you will either be trained by many elites in the insurance company, and with good luck, you will eventually become a qualified insurance salesperson, or you will not make a penny and finally leave on your own. Become a high-quality customer of the insurance company. Obviously, in Lao Wang's mind, this young man who was awkward in speaking and blushed when he saw a girl, obviously belonged to the latter group. This is the experience he has accumulated over many years in the insurance company, and he has always been very accurate in judging people. However, what surprised Lao Wang was that Su Tong, who had only officially joined the job and had undergone 3 days of training, actually signed a 100-year contract on the 4th day in full view of everyone and under the noses of major supervisors and elites. 10,000 big orders. What's even more bizarre is that the person who signed the bill has nothing to do with Su Tong. He is not even the customer information that the company pried from the bank. He is a complete passerby. Thinking of that scene at that time, everyone felt it was incredible. It was still raining lightly that day, and Su Tong, a group of newcomers, had just walked out of the company building, holding thick folders in their hands, which contained basic policy contracts, some documents on the latest products, and a pitiful number of, a customer who has been harassed by numerous insurance agents. This will be the beginning of their insurance career, and it is destined to be the lowest moment. However, at this moment, Su Tong suddenly walked onto the road and stopped in front of a Mercedes-Benz car. At that time, a middle-aged man got out of the car and started to curse. The other supervisors also stood in the distance and watched the excitement, praising the newcomer for his courage and secretly snickering inwardly. He was such a stupid young man. Even Lao Wang had a grimace on his face, hearing what the other supervisors were saying, but he didn't want to get angry. Besides, after all, they were the people he recruited, so he could only smile and say, "Good luck comes from the outside. If you don't go out, how do you know whether you will gain something? 100 people can't do it, but 101 can do it." Yes, Lao Wang is right. Visit more and visit more customers. Don't always think about the information in the bank channels. Going global is the foundation of our industry. The chief executive also came out at this time. He heard Lao Wang's words and praised him. He glanced at Su Tong, who was standing at the front of the car and was being scolded by the owner of the Mercedes-Benz. He was about to ask Lao Wang to praise him later. Boom! A loud noise startled everyone. When everyone turned around, they discovered that an out-of-control large truck had rushed straight in front of the Mercedes-Benz, directly knocking over several cars in the opposite lane. The picture is quite bloody and terrifying. The owner of the Mercedes-Benz was so frightened that he almost peed, because if Su Tong hadn't stopped his car, he would have entered the left turn waiting lane at this moment. It was unimaginable that such a large truck hit him from the side. Whether he can still live. Seeing the scene of the small Toyota being smashed into scrap metal in front of the truck, the Mercedes-Benz owner almost vomited. At this time, Su Tong handed him a bottle of water. You see, accidents are always everywhere, and no one can guarantee whether the accident or tomorrow will come first. So $1 million order that surprised everyone was actually completed on the spot. It was so smooth that Lao Wang, an old employee who has been in the insurance industry for more than 10 years, was surprised. No, even the big manager behind him opened his mouth wide, wishing he could put a light bulb in his mouth. As for the other supervisors, their faces are really snapping. If you thought it was just luck at first, then the insurance policy Su Tong continued to sign in the next few days made all the supervisors' eyes red. Although not as generous as the Mercedes-Benz owner, as long as this guy goes out, he can basically bring back 2 insurance policies. This can no longer be explained by luck. Such new employees are at their peak right after their debut, who can compare to them? Even if the subordinate signing supervisor can only get a performance reward, who wouldn't be surprised to have such a strong person in the team? During the meetings these past few days, Lao Wang was so stubborn that he wanted to tell everyone that there was a nuclear bomb behind me. Standing in front of the office door, Lao Wang sorted out his thoughts and calmed down his emotions before pushing the door open. As soon as he entered, he naturally looked for Su Tong first. I saw Su Tong sitting at the window at this moment, holding the insurance regulations in his hand and studying it carefully. Seeing such a scene, Lao Wang was so happy that he was so motivated, lucky, and so lucky. Who wouldn't like a powerful warrior? As for the other subordinates, ahem, Lao Wang's face darkened. Everyone is seated, let's have a morning meeting. After finishing speaking, he did not forget to add to Su Tong, little boy, just sit there. Of course, Su Tong didn't pay attention to Lao Wang, and Lao Wang didn't pay attention to this issue. After all, he was so absorbed in watching it that it didn't matter if he didn't hear it. Anyway, what he said was useless nonsense. However, what Lao Wang didn't know was that Su Tong didn't read a word of the insurance regulations on his hands at this time. No, it should be said that he had memorized this stuff by heart. At this moment, he is studying his prop cards, especially the so-called basic collection. There are quite a few of them, and they still occupy your own precious prop grid. You need to sort through them one by one, divide all the useless prop cards into areas, and plan to sell them directly during the exhibition tomorrow. For example, there is a basic encyclopedia of sugar pinching, a basic encyclopedia of pulling a card, and even more exaggerated, a basic encyclopedia of massage and a basic encyclopedia of sexual intercourse surgery. This made Su Tong once wonder if among the people he killed, there were also prostitutes from the underworld. Middleman. But there are some valuable things in it. For example, this set of basic carvings is not useless to Su Tong, because making paper figures by yourself not only requires craftsmanship, but also needs to be more vivid when making paper faces. This is what Master Song Lao once said. I suggested that he take a closer look at the Buddha statues and stone carvings and learn their face cutting techniques. Now that I have this prop card, it is also a great assistant for me. You can try to use it first, and after using it for a while, you can get familiar with it and then throw away this prop card. Just like my close combat technique, after using it so many times, this prop card is no longer that useful to me. Even without this prop card, I can still master the skills in it. Perhaps this is the real way to use prop cards, similar to the master's introduction door, and practice lies in the individual. After he finished sorting out all the messy prop cards, he looked up and saw that the meeting was over. So he pushed up his small backpack, stood up and walked out. That's why he chose the insurance company. If he wanted to quickly improve Chi Men's proficiency, he couldn't always do experiments on himself. He had to go out and do more experiments on others. Being an insurance salesman not only gives him better cover, but more importantly, he has free working hours. Except for the morning meeting, the rest of the time is almost completely at his own discretion. You can go to work for clients if you like. If you don't want to, just go home and sleep. Even if you are unhappy, it is okay to take a break for a few days or even a month. What? Deduct wages? No, 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 you are overthinking it. Anyone in an insurance company who dares to play like this must have an unbelievably good performance, and they simply do not dare to deduct his salary. Either your performance is so bad that you won't be deducted from your salary at all. In short, with my current performance level, asking for leave is just to give face to my supervisor. If I don't ask for leave, I don't dare to deduct a dime from him. After leaving the company gate, Su Tong estimated that it was almost over. When he was about to take the bus home, he suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked at a child who was probably in his early teens passing by. The two pairs of eyes were shining brightly, and they found that this child was actually filled with a heavy aura of death. Another look at the top of his head, the 4 characters "dying man," with an iron pen and a silver hook, seemed to have determined his death. Seeing this, Su Tong frowned and followed him. He could feel the aura of death in this child, and as he got closer and closer to the station, the aura of death became stronger and stronger. Is it another car accident? Su Tong didn't want to be a good person. In addition to his sympathy for the child, he wanted to try to use Kimen to change the child's fate, because he had already tried to change such a fate and gained proficiency. The highest blessing. Just like the Mercedes-Benz owner, he added 5 points of proficiency to himself. Others only had 1 point, and only 2 or 3 points. As for himself, they all only had 1 point. The aura of death on the owner of the Mercedes-Benz car was not so strong, so how could this child be like this? Just when he was wondering whether the child died in a car accident, he saw a bus slowly stopping at the station. He glanced at the other people on the bus and raised his eyebrows. No. Everyone else's luck in the car was normal, especially the driver's luck, although it was a bit dark, but it was within the normal range. Seeing the boy about to get in the car, Su Tong suddenly saw something different on the boy. He could vaguely see a few small red dots flashing on his back. These red dots were getting bigger and bigger. More and more, the boy's face became paler. Is it a disease? Seeing this, Su Tong's heart sank. He obviously felt very troubled by such a fate. Although he could pretend to be a doctor and perform surgery, it was surgery, and he knew nothing about internal medicine. Are there some fates that cannot be changed? While Su Tong was confused, he inadvertently saw a bus slowly stopping behind the bus. When he saw the words written on the bus, Su Tong's pupils tightened. The way out is here. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 315. I'm back. Su Tong opened the door and saw Gao Zhou eating noodles in the yard and said with a smile, "It looks like it's just time for dinner." "I'm back, hurry up, just in time, the noodles are just made, eat them while they're hot." Grandma Li came out of the kitchen and handed a bowl of noodles to Su Tong. Su Tong sighed and took the noodles politely. Gao Zhou glanced sideways at Grandma Li and frowned, "Are you done with your work? Hurry up and leave." Okay, I'll clean up the kitchen and leave." Faced with Gao Zhou's sarcastic words, Grandma Li was not angry, as if she had been accustomed to it, and said to Su Tong with a smile, "Eat quickly, there is not enough kitchen left." After saying that, he turned around and walked into the kitchen to start working again. Su Tong glanced at Grandma Li's figure, then at Gao Zhou's stinky face, and just shook his head without saying anything. After coming to the Gao family for a long time, he realized that the old lady who brought chicken soup to the two of them last time was called Li Rong, and she had a very special relationship with the Gao family. First appearance in Volume 5, Chapter 23, Preparation before entering. Even in terms of blood relations, Gao Zhou is still the grandson of Grandma Li. However, both Gao Zhou and Gao Zhou's father treated Grandma Li coldly. Although I want to persuade him, after all, the other party is an old man. He comes here every day to wash and cook, but at night he has to live in a small dilapidated house not far away. It seems a bit outrageous to outsiders. But I am an outsider after all, and it is not my turn to persuade him no matter what. I can only vaguely remind Gao Zhou, don't go too far. I sat down with the noodles and stuffed them into my mouth for a few mouthfuls. Not to mention that Grandma Li's craftsmanship is really good. The noodles are hand-rolled, thick and chewy, and topped with a layer of toppings of stir-fried beans with meat. The taste is moderately salty, and the viscosity is even better. Just stir the noodles a few times and coat them with minced meat. When you stuff it into your mouth, the taste, oops. While eating, he asked, "How have you been in retreat these past few days?" Gao Zhou looked a little calmer and shook his head, "It's hard to say, but it should be successful before the next script is entered." During this period of time, Gao Zhou has been studying the foreign priest. He doesn't know how Kinja turned the foreign priest into a zombie. The zombie actually still maintains a little self-thinking. What's even more strange is that although the corpse energy is very heavy, but there is also a holy aura in the zombie's body. This is the first time that Gao Zhou has encountered such a strange zombie. During this period, he is busy studying in seclusion. He plans to use his family's secret skills and his own corpse refining ground to see if he can successfully make this zombie break through again. He transformed into a golden armored corpse. Once he succeeded, he would leap over the dragon's gate. While the two were eating and talking, they saw a local news being broadcast on the TV news. At 7 o'clock this morning, a student died of sudden cardiac death at the waiting station. Fortunately, an inspection vehicle from Capital Medical College happened to be parked on the roadside. It was reported that this was a joint venture between Capital Union Medical College and Capital Medical College. 10 medical schools including Sichuan West China Hospital, Fudan Zishan Hospital, and Zhongshan First Hospital held an academic exchange group. After the rescue by 12 top cardiovascular experts present, the child is safe and sound. Please see the detailed report below. Puff. Seeing the news on the TV, Gao Zhou almost choked to death without swallowing his mouthful. Oh my god, with this lineup, even the god of death will kneel down. 12 top experts from the academy, you may not be able to get this kind of treatment even with money. If you invite any one of them, your registration will be postponed until next year. This child actually received emergency treatment from 12 experts at once. This treatment is really enviable and makes people drool. Gao Zhou was staring at the news when he suddenly saw the screen turn and Su Tong's back flashed past. He was stunned for a moment and looked back at Su Tong, who was eating noodles. I guess, there is something about you in this. Su Tong grinned. In fact, he was also blind at that time. I just feel that destiny, generally speaking, does not necessarily block the way of life. There is a passage in the Book of Changes that states that the great road is 50, the heavens are 49, and one of them can be escaped. The way out is often right around you, as the saying goes, it's just a matter of a thought. At that time, I subconsciously glanced at the bus behind me, and happened to see a red banner hanging on the bus, which said a warm welcome to the exchange group of the medical school. I thought it was a try, and gave it a try. He grabbed the child and didn't let him get on the bus. As soon as the child was pulled by him, something was wrong on the spot. His face was horribly pale, and it seemed that Su Tong was about to faint at that time due to such a sudden move. Su Tong immediately rushed to the bus with the child in his arms. When the doctors on the bus got off to see what was going on, he left quietly. But he didn't expect that such a luxurious lineup would be sitting in this humble bus. It was a blessing and a curse. Of course, what made him even more happy was that after he changed the child's fate, he suddenly gained 20 points of proficiency. This made him extremely happy. At present, his proficiency in Kimen has reached 74/100, and he only needs 26 proficiency points to upgrade. It seems that doing good deeds is not without rewards. Thinking of this, Gao Zhou frowned and glared at Su Tong with resentment on his face. Then why don't you help me change it? It turned out that Su Tong said that he had a bad omen, which shocked Gao Zhou. He thought that he had contracted some bad luck because of being together with this unlucky person. Unexpectedly, early the next morning, his father came back with a woman, saying that he wanted to marry this girl. There's really nothing to say about that girl's figure. She has long legs that are curved forward and backward, a water snake waist, a head of black hair, especially those breasts, his. It's so big that it can make people's eyes pop out when walking on the street. With such a good father, Gao Zhou should be enjoying himself secretly, but that girl's face was, well, indescribable. The facial features, whether it is the nose, eyes, mouth, or eyebrows, if you pick them out individually, they all look good, but when you put them together, the taste changes. Hey, many people don't understand this. Since they all look good, why don't they look good together? Let's use a small analogy. Durian is delicious, stinky tofu is also delicious, and mandarin fish tastes great. But if you put these three in a pot, it will make a pot of durian stinky. Tofu and mandarin fish soup, well, the whole building will probably suspect that you are making poison gas bombs. Gao Zhou looked up from the solace of the girl's feet and became greedy when he saw her thighs. He started licking his tongue when he saw her small waist. When he saw the future luxurious granary, he was so dissatisfied that he couldn't live up to expectations. As a result, he looked at his face. Hey, I almost vomited out my overnight meal. Good guy. Gao's father's face was all black at that time. He picked up the guy and beat him. Anyway, Gao Zhou couldn't change his father's mind despite all his good words and harsh words, and his ID card was even taken away. As for Gao Zhou's father, he also had good intentions. When he sensed something was wrong with his son and even reactivated the family's abandoned corpse refining ground, he made up his mind to keep his son behind. As for the girl named Fengxia, Gao Zhou's father spent a lot of money to hire 3 aunts and 6 women, and he talked about it 5 or 6 times before finally saying it. After that, he planned to choose a date for Gao Zhou to get married. If you ask Gao Zhou to kill people and set fires, he will be unambiguous at all, but if you ask him to disobey his father, he really can't do it. Those with high EQ would call it filial piety, while those with low EQ would call it father and son. Gao Zhou was still worried about this matter these days. No wonder he looked at Su Tong with such resentful eyes. He, this is your father's kindness, nephew, please don't let it down. Su Tong joked in the tone of his elders. In fact, he had never seen the girl Fengxia, but when he came back that day, he happened to encounter Gao Zhou scolding Gao Zhou. Thinking of what his father Gao Tianfang said when he taught Gao Zhou a lesson, he couldn't help laughing. Son, you have the ambition of Hongpeng. As a father, I won't stop you, but you are the only one in our family. If you have something wrong with you, how can I see your grandfather? Don't think that Fengxia looks so good. Well, it's a little uncoordinated, but my butt is big, easy to give birth to, and it's big here, so the baby will not be short of milk in the future. I'm worried about the amount of milk powder now. You're not satisfied with this. As for your appearance, you'll be fine when you go out. Outside, with a wife like this, what do you have to worry about? I have to say that Gao Tianfang has thought very carefully, and Su Tong is very envious, just accept this bad omen. It just so happens that I can catch up with your wedding this time. I think you sincerely want to see me make a fool of myself. Gao Zhou was so angry that his nose was crooked. Just when the two were joking and scolding, they suddenly heard footsteps coming from outside the door, and heard a voice that was deep in his bones calling, "Brother Gao." Gao Zhou's heart skipped a beat, and he felt his scalp numb. The sound seemed 100 times more terrifying than a zombie. He squinted his eyes and looked up, only to see a beautiful figure standing there at the door, holding a basket in his hand and saying, "My mother said that the date has been chosen and she asked me to deliver it to your father." When Su Tong heard this, he was smiling to see what his siblings looked like, but he turned around to look. A Vomit Infinite Script Killing Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 316. At night, Su Tong and Gao Zhou came to a building. This is a building that has been abandoned for a long time. I don't know the specific reason why it was abandoned. The two of them pushed open the old door and walked in. They saw the flickering neon lights in front of them, giving people a visual sense of the 1980s. But this is not a script-killing experience hall, but an extremely mysterious place, that Gao Zhou said. "Are you sure about this place?" Su Tong looked around. He didn't think this was a good place, but more like Yutong Street in L City. "Hey, you don't understand. This place is really a good place. Don't worry, come with me." Gao Zhou pursed his lips and led Su Tong forward, passing through an inconspicuous dark corner. Su Tong occasionally saw some young men and women standing at the door talking about these things. Seeing this, he couldn't help but doubt his guess even more. However, when Gao Zhou paid the 20 yuan ticket at the door and led him up the stairs, Su Tong couldn't help but be surprised by the song and dance hall in front of him. Who would have thought that there would be such a large dance hall hidden in such a shabby building outside? The light inside was very dim, and there were a few men sitting sparsely on the booths in the hall, including young people, middle-aged people, and even elderly people. Under the light on the other side, a row of fat and thin girls sat on a row of chairs, as if they were quietly waiting for something. This is completely different from Su Tong's impression of those noisy bars. Hey, you haven't seen it before, but don't be too surprised. It's not popular in the north where you come from. It's everywhere here. Seeing Su Tong's confused expression, Gao Zhou introduced him in a low voice. It turns out that this is the popular local sand dance. Strictly speaking, it is a good place for cultivating sentiments and leisure arts. Even a strong man will obediently join the dancing team when he comes here. It hasn't started yet, let's sit down first and I'll tell you the rules. Gao Zhou took Su Tong and sat in the corner and briefly introduced the rules. In fact, if you like the girl, you can take her to the dance floor. But don't stand in the middle and dance, but squeeze in the dark corner on the left. Go. The price is very affordable, calculated based on songs, 5 yuan per song. How about it, isn't it exciting? Su Tong nodded curiously, and before he could ask any more questions, Gao Zhou had already stood up, ran to the other side and started acting as a hunter under the spotlight, and he shamelessly dragged two of them onto the dance floor. It is estimated that this is to use the stimulation of sand dance to temporarily get rid of Feng Xia's shadow. Hey! Why are you doing this? It's not the same when the lights are turned off. Su Tong couldn't help but shook his head as he watched Gao Zhou pull the two beauties into the shadow of the dance floor. After a while the music started, and as the music played, more and more people began to squeeze into the dance floor. Under the dark and psychedelic lights, I saw men and women in the dark huddled together spontaneously. Because Su Tong had dark vision, he could see clearly. He even saw Gao Zhou hugging him and was not satisfied, so he even his dirty hands reached towards other people's female companions. Brother, are you alone? Before Su Tong could look at her for a while, a girl suddenly sat down next to him and took his arm in her arms enthusiastically. The pungent smell of cheap perfume made Su Tong frown unconsciously. First time here? Why don't we go in and play together? It'll be fun. The girl was about the same age as Su Tong, and her appearance was not bad, but Su Tong couldn't stand the pungent smell on her body, so he took his hand out casually. No need. I thought the girl would still pester her, but it turned out that Su Tong was overthinking it. Seeing Su Tong's refusal, the woman immediately stood up and left. Without wasting a second here, she turned around and threw herself into the arms of another middle-aged man. Ha 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 ha. Behind them, in front of the hall, Dia and Jixiang held their stomachs and laughed, while Fasai turned into a stool for these two guys to sit down with a depressed look on their face. It turned out that these three guys were making a bet on whether Su Tong would follow the girl to the dance floor. The result was self-evident. How could a stupid and rich man be the opponent of Jixiang and Dia? He could only turn into a chair obediently. Give both a seat. Headmaster, would you like to light a stick of incense and I will come out and dance with you? Dia put her fingers on her pink lips, bit them lightly, and tilted her body to look at Su Tong. That charming and contrived posture, coupled with the purity in her watery blue eyes, made Su Tong unable to stop herself from seeing it. Goosebumps. If he hadn't known that this little girl was a vixen, Su Tong would have almost made a move. I think your skin is itchy. I've given you too much incense recently. After scolding angrily, Su Tong glanced at Daya's chest and curled his lips. No one can stop me from dreaming of becoming a pilot. Daya? Headmaster, over there. At this time, Ji Xiang, who was sitting aside, suddenly pointed forward and said to Su Tong. What was Su Tong thinking? You, a rat spirit, want to come out and play around. It's not like I'm filming the Sloppy King, so there's no role for you. But when he followed Jixiang's hand and looked ahead, huh. Under the spotlight, a young woman in her 30s was standing there. If a woman is compared to a flower, then the age of more than 20 is just when the flower has just bloomed. When it really blooms, it is the time when the flower is blooming. The age of 10 years old and above. Just at this moment, The person under the spotlight is wearing a dark green cheongsam, with a graceful figure. The slit of the cheongsam reveals black stockings, paired with a pair of burgundy high heels. She is simply a peony among flowers, and people will notice her at a glance. As the saying goes, the old woman lifts her hair like a teenager, and even though the young woman's appearance can only be considered delicate, her unique temperament can be described as a young killer. It's a pity that most young people stared directly at her, but were timid and stopped because of the invisible aura about her. Interesting. Su Tong scrutinized the young woman with his eyes and walked up. Just when a young man in front of him was summoning up the courage to step forward and take her hand, he saw Su Tong's hand blocking the young woman's hand first. Around his waist, he held the young woman in his arms very domineeringly. "Sorry, the famous flower has its owner, next one." Su Tong raised his head and smiled at the astonished boy, then strode onto the dance floor with his arm around the young woman's waist. "You are so bad." The young woman did not resist. Instead, she snuggled into Su Tong's arms like a bird. Not to mention, if an ordinary young man was snuggled into Su Tong's arms like this, he would probably be so happy that his protective instincts would explode. He was not being honest. He actually held the beauty in his arms and protected her carefully, not daring to touch her. It's a pity that Su Tong didn't follow this trick at all. He followed Gao Zhou's example and pulled the young woman into the crowd, and started walking his fingers down the young woman's waist. If a man isn't bad, a woman won't love him, right? As he spoke, he grabbed her butt with his palm. Hey, it felt surprisingly good. The young woman shuddered and subconsciously took a step back. Unfortunately, Su Tong didn't give her a chance. Instead, he hugged her tighter. He took a gentle sniff in front of the young woman's hair, and a faint jasmine fragrance came over her. "You look strange to me. Are you not a local?" Seeing that she couldn't break free, the young woman simply stopped breaking free and allowed Su Tong to take advantage of her. She raised her head and asked curiously, "Oh, it's my first time here for a trip. Have you been here for a long time?" Su Tong squinted his eyes and glanced in Gao Zhou's direction. "Good guy, this kid is flying so fast that his head is almost in the arms of the two beauties." Sensing Su Tong looking at him, Gao Zhou raised his eyebrows, looked at the young woman in his arms, and gave a thumbs up calmly. "Idiot." Su Tong twitched the corner of his mouth and scorned him fiercely. "What?" The young woman was stunned for a moment, and Su Tong quickly changed the subject. Turning his eyes, he suddenly noticed an old man and an old lady dancing in the middle of the dance floor. Well, don't get me wrong, the steps of the two elderly people are staggered, it's more like they are really dancing, rather than being squeezed together in the dark like this. Don't you think it's interesting? The young woman saw Su Tong looking towards the old couple in the center of the dance floor and asked Su Tong. "Well, sort of." Su Tong nodded undeniably. This place was like a gathering of people, but in this atmosphere, there was a pair of old people dancing seriously. On one side is the bestiality exuding the smell of youthful hormones, on the other side is the etiquette of a gentleman in a civilized era. Two contradictory things are gathered on a small dance floor at the same time. This strong contrast makes Su Tong feel magical for a moment. Feeling. Actually, they have known each other for a long time. When they were young, they were just like us now, but as time went by, the passion faded, and after they had their own families, they became more like a pair of friends who are more familiar than lovers. The woman looked at the old couple on the dance floor, bowing to each other like gentlemen, and her eyes gradually became hazy, as if they were reminiscing about something. The young woman said and rested her head on Su Tong's shoulder, "I envy them so much. I really envy them. When I grow old, it will be great to have such the most honest relationship with me." After speaking, he raised his head again, staring at Su Tong with his clear black and white eyes. "Tell me, will I also meet such a man?" Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly, caressed the woman's head with his palm, slid his fingers along her black hair, and placed the woman's head on his chest again, but the smile at the corner of his mouth became colder. I don't know if it's possible, but what I am sure of is that there will be no good outcome between humans and ghosts in the end. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shuigan Xiao. Chapter 317. The woman froze, raised her head suddenly, and looked at Su Tong in front of her in surprise. But Su Tong looked disapproving, and just hugged her waist and continued, "The soul cannot stay in the world of the sun for long, otherwise it will become muddled over time. It seems that you have been here for a long time. Not only have you not changed, but you have seen, it becomes more and more alive as it goes up, and even blends in with the crowd without any harm. It must have absorbed the yang energy of a lot of living people." Su Tong narrowed his eyelids, as if he could see through the woman's thoughts. His deep gaze made the woman's body tremble uneasily, but she did not dare to resist. She knew that she had met a capable person today. The other person could reveal her identity and obviously would not be afraid of her at all. Biting the corners of his lips, as if struggling with something, he whispered in Su Tong's ear, "Let me go, I'm willing to do anything, I don't want to go to the vagina." Su Tong didn't respond when he heard this. In fact, he was just curious. He had no intention of eradicating evil and promoting good. He just looked at the old man dancing aside. He saw that the old man was still sitting on the chair after saying goodbye to his dance partner. Is waiting for something quietly. He's dying. Hearing this, the woman's expression changed and she turned her head sharply, but then she seemed to understand something and glared at Su Tong, "You are trying to frame me." The corner of Su Tong's mouth raised slightly. The woman's hazy eyes when she looked at the old man just now were too complicated. How could a performing master like Su Tong not see it? But he didn't mean to trick her. The old man had a lot of yang energy, but it was a bit too much. Instead, he looked like an 18-year-old boy. Su Tong guessed that the woman might have secretly given the yang energy she sucked to the old man. "I want to use this method to help him survive. But doing so is detrimental to the harmony of the world. The old man is not a strange person. With so much yang energy piled up on his body has already been unable to bear it." Looking at the destiny above the old man's head, it is a withered willow tree with leaves on the treetop. They have all withered, and only one or two dark yellow leaves are still barely remaining. It seems that just a gust of breeze can blow down these two leaves. As for when this gust of breeze will happen, maybe tomorrow or the next second. In the theory of Tao Shen, it is said that the heart stores the spirit, the lungs store the soul, the liver stores the soul, the spleen stores the mind, the kidneys store the will, and the brain is the house of the soul. Yang Qi is born in the spleen, rooted in the kidneys, and sprouts in the liver. Excessive Yang Qi will inevitably lead to excessive liver fire and damage to the soul. Over time, the 5 internal organs will be out of tune. At first glance, it does not seem to be a serious problem, but in fact, it is like a willow tree that has been fertilized too much, the roots have been burned to death, making it difficult to absorb nutrients. Su Tong combined his own fortune-telling and the theory of regulating spirits he had read to draw a conclusion. "I am afraid that this old man is already terminally ill and has no way to save himself. The reason why he can still dance here at this time is entirely because he has sufficient yang energy. As a result, the kidneys are fed back, and the kidneys store the will, making the elderly feel energetic. Well, to put it simply, it means returning to the light." "How so?" When the woman heard Su Tong's words, her face turned ugly for a moment. Could it be that she had harmed him instead? When she thought of this, the woman's eye circles immediately turned red, but she was a ghost after all. She had no tears. No matter how sad she was, she couldn't cry a single tear. Su Tong looked at the old man's fate and thought about whether he could change his fate, but after thinking for a long time, he could not think of any way. Chi Men's skill is amazing. It is a passive skill and can often only give you a feeling, but if you don't have a feeling, you can only rely on your own judgment. Of course, this may be because the level of Kimen is too low. I wonder if it will be improved after upgrading in the future. Thinking of this, Su Tong couldn't help but feel bitter in his heart. Sure enough, I still need to study more. When I go to the exhibition tonight, let's see if we can find any divination type prop cards to match with the Fate Kimen. Go, he seems to be waiting for you. If you go to the netherworld, you won't have a chance to jump again. After all, the Lord of Hell doesn't like the beauty of adulthood like I do. Su Tong let go of his hand and half-jokingly reminded the woman to hurry up. Not everyone's soul has the opportunity to stay in the world. The only things that can stay in this world are those who die unjustly and unjustly. In the case of the old man, 9 times out of 10, after death, his soul will be drawn into a specific place, waiting for some evil spirit to come and take him away. After the woman was stunned for a few seconds, she seemed to understand something. She turned back to look at Su Tong, bowed slightly behind Su Tong, then stood up on her toes and walked out of the dance floor towards the old man. In just a few steps, the woman's face has already changed a lot. It can't be said to be very beautiful, but it is a bit more stunning than before. The old man sat on the chair and felt that after dancing, his body was getting more and more tired, but he still wanted to wait because the dance hall usually closed at 10 o'clock. Although he didn't believe in any miracles, he just wanted to wait. Maybe it was because people became stubborn as they got older, or maybe the older generation liked to get into trouble. He had waited for such a night countless times. But today is destined to be different. A pair of familiar burgundy high-heeled shoes appeared in front of him. The old man was stunned. He slowly raised his head along the shoes. When he looked at the face he had never forgotten under the light, the old man's tired expression was swept away. Back then, we said goodbye in a hurry on a rainy night, and never saw each other again. Now, when we meet again, there are no young people with white hair under the lamp. Looking at the hands thrown towards him, the old man slowly stood up, gently held his hands, and walked onto the dance floor together. Boss, change the song. Su Tong didn't know when he had walked to the bar, glanced at the old-fashioned radio on the bar, and handed over a tape and 2 bright red bills. Okay. Want something to drink? The boss took the tape generously. Requesting songs was not a rare thing here, but this was the first time he brought his own tape. He took the money and the tape and asked casually. Coke, with ice. Su Tong leaned against the bar, staring at the man and woman who re-entered the dance floor. The boss skillfully put the tape into the radio and pressed the play button. A lyrical old song sounded in the dance hall. Accompanied by the melodious and moving singing, the 2 people on the dance floor stared at each other, as if they had thousands of words to say in their hearts, but for a while they didn't know where to start. If I hadn't met you, where would I be and how would my life be? But fortunately, when the music sounded, the singing seemed to replace the voices of the 2 of them, and countless words began to beat together with the steps of the 2. As time goes by in a hurry, I only care about you, and I am willing to be infected by your breath. How often can you find a confidant in life, and it is not a pity to lose the power of life. The dance is slow and elegant, jumping on the dance floor. At this moment, it seems that even time has slowed down in this music. In the dim light, the old man seemed to have returned to the time he had missed forever. Under the flashlight and with the dancing, it seemed that time was going back to that day 40 years ago. His body gradually became taller and taller. With short black hair and a handsome young face, as if going back in time, lightly holding the girl's fingers in her palm, her white skirt fluttering, the light and shadow intertwining, like an elf. Let time go by in a hurry, I only care about you. Su Tong held up the coke and drank it sip after sip. He was not interested in the love entanglement between the infatuated man and the resentful woman in front of him, because sometimes, the process is not important, but the result is what people like to see. Under the singing, the two people who seemed to be separated from each other gradually gathered together. Until the song ended, the old man gently held the woman's finger with his palm and bent to make the final bow of his life. The two people on the dance floor gradually disappeared in Su Tong's sight. The coke is very sweet. Su Tong put it to his mouth and sipped it lightly, but it was more like he was slowly reminiscing about the dance he just performed. They say that time is something that cannot be seen, but here, it makes people seem to have so much a touch of contact with time. Bang! A sudden scream from the booth not far away interrupted Su Tong's interest. When the boss heard the noise, he rushed over and saw that the old man on the chair had closed his eyes at some point. There was a happy smile on the wrinkled cheeks, just like a child who had a sweet dream, and was silent in his dream, falling asleep forever. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 318. But having said that, if an old man dies in a place like Sand Dance Hall, no matter how peacefully he passes away, he is bound to not leave a good reputation, but everyone is dead, so who cares? Does Su Tong care? He doesn't care. Does the old man care? Apparently he doesn't care either. Boss, I care. In fact, the boss also recognizes the old man's family. After all, the old man has been dancing here every day since his father's generation. He arrives on time almost every day, even more punctual than picking up his grandson. For this reason, their family came to see him several times, but as time went by, that was all. At this time, the old man suddenly died here. He was not afraid of trouble at the other party's house, but after all, it was an entertainment place, and a dead person would inevitably cause a lot of trouble. The police will come to do an autopsy later, and I am afraid that I will not be able to do business these days. When I think of this boss, I curse in my heart, thinking, Uncle, I will kowtow to you, please get up. This is nonsense. If it really got up, it wouldn't scare people to death. Anyway, with the old man's incident, everyone naturally couldn't continue playing. Gao Zhou came over with a depressed look on his face, cursing that he hadn't had enough fun yet. Su Tong glanced at him. There are many places like this in the exhibition. You can play whatever you want. Let's go. Hearing this, Gao Zhou muttered in a low voice, You're kidding, the ones at the exhibition are for script points. The higher-end ones are divided into 1 hour and 20 o'clock scripts, and the diamond-encrusted ones are not worth the price. Isn't it? If 20 points of script points are placed in the Script Experience Center, they can be exchanged for about 500 grams of pure gold. If it were played in reality and 500 grams of pure gold was converted into money, it would probably be enough to drain his wealth. Although I have just completed a major script and have quite a lot of script points at hand, I cannot waste it like this. After the two people walked out of the Sand Dance Hall, they did not continue to walk out. Instead, they walked up the abandoned stairs. The stairs were dilapidated and smashed to prevent people from going upstairs privately. But for Su Tong, for Gao Zhou, this is nothing. When the two walked up to the roof and pushed open an old wooden door, a familiar sign appeared in front of them. Script Killing Experience Center. After opening the door, Su Tong first stuck his head out and looked at the front desk. When he saw the familiar face with thick powder on it and a slightly unnatural face, Su Tong instantly felt more comfortable. Ever since he met his eldest nephew's wife, Su Tong had never felt that this face was so pleasing to the eye. Come in, are you still ready for me to invite you? Aimee picked up the mirror and touched up her eyebrows a few times. She glanced at Su Tong with her phoenix eyes and said angrily, Hey hey. Su Tong walked in slyly, put his head on the table, raised his head and looked at the lovely young lady in front of him, and put a paper crane on the table with his other hand. Our big script last time, it's not you who helped us. The last big script was supposed to be joined by not just a few people but several teams. Su Tong thought about it carefully. Even if it was a big script he started, there was no reason to receive this preferential treatment. Sila, when I wanted to go, I thought that maybe the young lady in front of me was taking care of me secretly. While talking, Su Tong did not forget to take out the gift he had prepared early. It was a glass bottle with a paper crane folded from gold foil. Different from many paper cranes, this paper crane was more lifelike. Every feather seems to have been carefully carved. Come on, I'm not helping you. You just got lucky and happened to catch up with the opening of another big script. Those teams seem to have colluded and entered into another big script together. Amy put down the mirror in her hand and glanced at the gift from Su Tong out of the corner of her eye. Compared to the golden swan, she cared more about the ordinary paper crane on the table next to her. The exhibition is about to start, do you want to go in and have hot pot together? Su Tong squinted his eyes and continued to use his shameless and excellent skills. Forget about the hot pot, I'll give you a piece of information, so that's enough. Amy stretched out lazily, took out a piece of paper and handed it to Su Tong. The things sold in this place are very strange, but the exchange requires the badge settlement. You can go and have a look, and remember to help me. Bringing a bottle of Beiwa pills is my reward. Oh. Su Tong's heart moved, he stretched out his hand to take the note from Amy, and nodded to indicate that he had taken note of it. When Gao Zhou followed behind him, he couldn't help but feel sour in his heart. He urged Su Tong in a low voice to leave quickly, it's almost time, let's. Amy glanced at Gao Zhou, her eyes flicking up and down, which made Gao Zhou feel cold all over. He hurriedly shrank behind Su Tong a few times and stuck his head out. Well, I'm not in a hurry, you guys keep talking, keep talking. Can you do me one more favor? If I want to find a player, or an ordinary person, I know his name. Is there any way to find him? Su Tong suddenly remembered something and asked Amy in a low voice. 50 script points. Amy stretched out her hand towards Su Tong, seemingly not intending to give Su Tong a chance to have sex for free. Su Tong could only pay the money obediently, and then he heard Amy say, there is this place in the note I just gave you. Find it yourself. Well. Su Tong's mouth twitched, and he paid the money in vain. Seeing Su Tong's deflated look, a smile gradually appeared on Amy's face. The money will not be refunded to you, but I want to remind you that before going, it is best to buy a few bottles of Huo Shao knife at the winery in the northwest corner. Okay, got it? Su Tong looked suddenly enlightened, turned around and pulled Gao Zhou inside. After the two of them walked into the door leading to the exhibition, a questioning voice suddenly came from behind Amy, you smashed your sister's head just because of him. Hearing the sound, Amy lay lazily on the bar, picked up the paper crane and looked at it for a while, then threw it away and the paper crane fell into the glass bottle under the table. Then he took the glass bottle in his hand and said, you said you have to have hope in life. I really want to see if he can fill this bottle one day. Seeing her looking at the paper crane in the glass bottle in a daze, the shadow behind her sighed and disappeared without a trace. After a moment, a sentence came, sister's head will not be able to recover for a while, you first be responsible for being the host, and leave the front desk to lay yat. Cut. Amy curled her lips and played with the bottle in her hand, while her heart couldn't help but think of that figure 100 years ago. On the other side, Su Tong and Gao Zhou, who re-entered the ghost market, looked at the scattered exhibition streets in front of them. They looked at each other, agreed on a time and a gathering place, and then separated. Su Tong walked to the phone booth and dialed the familiar number. But when I called, I found no one answered. This made him a little surprised. Yang Zixuan didn't answer the phone. Something happened to this guy. Although he and Yang Zixuan are not particularly good friends, he still likes Yang Zixuan's style. Unfortunately, there is no room for two tigers in one mountain. This guy is too ambitious and he doesn't like to be controlled by others. If it were in the world of scripts, I believe that the first thing on the mind of two people when they meet is to kill each other. Even so, Su Tong still hopes that nothing unexpected happens to this guy. After all, such an interesting enemy is not something you can encounter casually. Since Yang Zixuan didn't answer the phone, Su Tong could only regretfully wander around the exhibition by himself for the time being. Let's go to the overseas shopping area first. There are all kinds of things here. Su Tong first walked around to see if he could exchange some valuable prop cards. But what disappoints him is that there are all kinds of prop cards here, but there are very few that really catch his eye. Even if he can, when he asks about the price, they are instantly boring. For example, he saw a card titled 72-character Judisha divination technique, and tentatively asked about the price. As soon as the other party asked, he went straight to the 10,000 script share, and Su Tong left on the spot. 10,000 script points, do you think the script points are just cabbage? Even if you have 1,800 script points now, you still have to make deductions to spend them. If you have 10,000 script points, why would you still come to this ghost place? In fact, I can't blame them for being expensive. Businesses in this kind of place are all about demanding high prices and paying back the money. In addition to the divination prop cards, there are actually not many in number and are very rare. On the one hand, those who master them need to have some professional knowledge, and on the other hand, because once mastered, they can seek good fortune and avoid misfortune, and can even calculate many things, often being able to be one step ahead. Su Tong certainly knew this truth, but the price offered by the other party was too outrageous, and he had no real intention to take action. It feels more like fishing. So he planned to continue shopping. There were still many special prop cards worthy of attention at the exhibition. Even if they were not for sale, it would be very beneficial to visit them. For example, a pair of straw sandals may look very inconspicuous, but they actually have the ability to find paths and divine fortune. What does it mean? Just say that you were going somewhere and suddenly got lost on the road. At this time, you took off your shoes and threw them away. Hey! Just hang it on the tree. It seems that you have thrown it too hard. This is how to use these straw sandals. But you have to watch it carefully and don't let it hang on the tree. If you throw it on the ground and see if the toe of the shoe is facing that direction, go in that direction. I don't know if this is superstition, but the entry for this straw sandal is marked to point you in the right direction, so it's definitely not wrong. There is also a thing called cute ring. Su Tong likes it very much. It is said that wearing it can make it look cute. I originally planned to buy it if it was not expensive, but when I asked about the price, well, this thing actually costs 400 script points. Su Tong could only curse a profiteer and turned around and left. Etc. After taking just 2 steps, Su Tong paused and looked sideways at a prop card with a very special name mockery doll spread out on the side. When he saw the entry, he immediately became happy. Boss, how do you sell this thing? Su Tong looked at the doll, and the more he looked at it, the more he liked it. This thing was useless for others, but it seemed to have a good use for himself. He looked at the doll's entry and couldn't help but have a bold idea in his mind. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 319. Taunting Doll. Active Skill 1, what are you looking at? After consuming 10 script points after activation, the doll will center on itself and emit taunting sound waves, causing surrounding enemies to unknowingly attract attention to itself. Note, if this had been left in the hands of northern gentlemen, they would have dismantled it long ago. This doll seems to work well, but neither the MTS in the team nor those self-proclaimed melee masters will use this thing. Any MT in a qualified team is definitely a master at controlling the field, and they will not force themselves to die. After all, this is not an online game. There are several wet nurses standing behind you to increase your blood infinitely. If it really goes to the battlefield, the role of MT is often more to protect one's own output, rather than making random big noises to add pressure to one's own side. Moreover, this thing needs to be activated separately, and it does not focus all the firepower brainlessly. If you want to tie this thing to a wooden stake or a beast to help you attract firepower, don't even think about it. So naturally this thing will not be popular at the exhibition. The stall owner just put this thing on it as a top-up, and didn't expect anyone to actually buy it. When he saw someone asking, the stall owner's eyes lit up and he hurriedly said, "Brother, you know the goods. Most people don't even take a second look at this thing, but you know the goods right away." The stall owner is also an old seller. He first greeted him with flattery and praised his treasure. Then he changed his voice and said, "I think we are destined, so I will take away the 200 script points." 200, Su Tong is not one of those newbies who are easy to deceive. He shook his head, "It's too exaggerated. The cost of making one trap is only 40 script points. Adding this thing will cost 240 points. How many can I make? It's a trap." The stall owner was stunned when he heard this, and immediately understood in his mind that the person in front of him seemed to be good at making traps, similar to that of a hunter. I'm afraid this kid didn't understand that this prop card cannot be transferred to a dead object. The stall owner thought about it, hesitated and said, "Then 100, no more. 50. Sell it if you want. If not, I'd rather make another trap." Su Tong's insistent attitude made the stall owner feel a little entangled for a while. It would be too much of a loss to sell it. If he didn't sell it, he just pressed the thing in his hand. He hesitated for a moment and gritted his teeth, "Take the 60. Seeing this, Su Tong took the doll in his hand, handed it to the stall owner for 60 minutes and turned around to leave. Humph, sometimes you cry. When the stall owner saw this, he immediately understood that he had made a loss, but the transaction had been completed and he had no way to get it back. He could only secretly curse the kid for failing in his trap and getting himself killed. When Su Tong got the doll, he was very happy. This thing was of no use to others. If it fell into his own hands, it would be a treasure. At this moment, he was looking forward to starting the script world earlier next time to test his ideas. After wandering around the overseas shopping area for a long time, Su Tong spotted another item card called 5 Animal Capture Hand at a stall. As well as their own close combat skills, the bearer is able to use the 5 Animal Grappler's abilities. The price is 160 script points. It is said that this kind of basic prop card can only last for 100 script points, but this prop card is slightly different. It has a proficiency level, which is the 3rd level. After reaching the full level, there is a certain probability that the whole body will be increased by 15%. Overall quality. This was more tempting, so it was understandable that the asking price was high. However, the stall owner was not at the stall and all the items were on display. Su Tong could only pick up the pen and ink on the side and leave a message, hoping that the other party could contact him. After wandering around the overseas shopping area, I already had a rough idea of these prop cards, so I simply rented a stall and took out all the basic encyclopedias I had compiled and put them on the stall. Basic encyclopedias are not uncommon, but when Su Tong took out so many in one go, many people stopped to watch. But if you take a closer look, you will see that this thing is quite interesting. There are things like carpentry, paper cutting, and even intercourse surgery and massage. There are a lot of weird things. The prices of these basic collections are all sold through bidding. The base price starts at 20 points for script points. Su Tong is actually mentally prepared to sit on the bench. However, surprisingly, These basic encyclopedias are more popular than expected. Moreover, the most fierce competition among them was actually the basic encyclopedia of carpentry. Su Tong thought it would be about fangzhongshu. As a result, no one paid much attention to the fangzhongshu surgery. As soon as Su Tong thought about it, he understood the reason. After all, as long as you are a player and your physique has been improved, your endurance will definitely be no problem. As long as a man has strong stamina, all his skills will be useless and he will be done with it. As for women, there is no need for it. Real beauty does not rely on this to win people's hearts. In contrast, although these basic skills are mostly life skills, if you master these skills, you can completely use the skill to complete the identity change or disguise in the script. For example, pretending to be a carpenter requires you to know some carpentry work. This work is not as simple as hammering and hammering. In the past, if you dared to use a nail, you would be knocked out of the door. It is said that the buildings in the Forbidden City did not use a single nail from top to bottom. Using nails would be a disgrace to the craft, and amateur carpenters are not even considered. Therefore, this basic encyclopedia of woodworking was finally sold for 120 script points, which was really beyond Su Tong's expectations. It didn't take long for these basic encyclopedias to be sold out, and Su Tong had to pack them up and deal with them at a low price, leaving only the Chinese medicine and massage techniques in his own room. But in general, the harvest was quite rich, with almost 600 script points. Added together with the script points in my hand, it has exceeded the 2,000 mark. With such a large amount of money, Su Tong's waist has naturally become stronger. Now that his waist has become stronger, he will naturally go to the place that Aimee guided him to have a look. In the northwest corner of the exhibition, Su Tong actually found the wine shop that Aimee mentioned. The name of the wine shop is quite special. It is called Go to Bed After 3 Drinks. When he went in, he saw that it was full of various wine tanks and barrels. There were also some old wines on the shelves. Su Tong picked up a bottle of mutai and looked at the price. It shocked him a little. This bottle of Han Emperor mutai actually costs 300 script points. The mocking doll I just bought only has 60 script points, so a bottle of wine costs 300 script points? After taking a look at the entry posted above, I saw that it was just a bottle of Maotai liquor with no additional effects at all. Su Tong put the wine back on the shelf and looked at the other drinks. When he saw that the black and white clay pot placed in the glass cabinet was priced at 30,000 script points, Su Tong instantly felt that his waist was not so straight. Asked the boss, "What's the price of the fire shao knife?" When the boss heard the name, his finger on the abacus paused slightly, and he raised his head and glanced at Su Tong. Although Su Tong wore a mask on his face, his true appearance could not be seen, and even his voice was changed by the mask, but the boss did, having been in the wine business for so many years, one can tell at a glance that Su Tong is a young man. He suddenly laughed. "It's cheap. You can share a bottle at 3 o'clock. However, I don't recommend you to drink it." Su Tong's biggest problem is curiosity. Hearing what the boss said, he couldn't help but wonder, "Why, is this wine blended? Bah, even the cheapest wine I have is genuine, and I don't want to bury people like you." After saying that, he took out a rough porcelain wine bottle from under the cabinet, opened it and poured Su Tong a small glass. Immediately, a strong smell of alcohol hit his nose. The boss grinned, "If you finish this glass of wine without vomiting, I will sell it to you." In fact, the boss didn't say anything. Su Tong also wanted to taste the wine, so he picked up the glass and drank it in one gulp. Although the taste of the wine was very pungent, when it was actually eaten, it was not as spicy as expected. Su Tong thought it was nothing more than that, but when the wine entered his throat, his whole face suddenly turned red. The veins on his forehead were tensed up. As soon as the wine entered his throat, it felt like it was burning. It was spicy and hot, like a red-hot knife being stuffed into his throat. Even Su Tong was like this. His physique was beyond that of ordinary people, and within a short time beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He finally managed not to vomit it out. When the wine reached his stomach, even a person like Su Tong, who couldn't even eat several bowls of braised noodles without belching, felt as if someone had punched him hard at this moment. The facial features under the mask are almost distorted. Standing in front of the cabinet, his fists clenched loudly. Fortunately, I only had this small glass of wine, and after enduring it for a while, the power of the wine dissipated. Ha 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 ha. I told you, this wine is not for you to drink. The boss pinched his beard and laughed. However, although he meant to laugh at Su Tong, he kept his word and took out a box of wine from under the container, with a total of 7 bottles in it. I don't want any change, just give me 20. Su Tong felt that his throat was almost hoarse at this time, so he nodded and bought the wine directly. However, he still asked the boss curiously, "Why do you think I can't drink this kind of wine?" He, because you are young. The boss didn't hide anything. He fiddled with the abacus beads with one hand, moved 2 more beads on the account, and said slowly, "The tea cakes are fragrant when chewed, and there are thousands of words in the cup of wine. They all say that tea drinkers should be smart and rich. This is nonsense. Little do they know that everything in the world cannot be done without wine, and what is on the tea table is conspiracy and transaction. That's what's going on at the wine table." After speaking, he pointed to the fire knife on the table. "Don't think that this wine is a bargain. I lose 8 script points when I sell a bottle. The reason why I have to sell it at a loss is because of this wine, isn't it? It is for ordinary people to drink. People who have not experienced the vicissitudes of life cannot appreciate the taste. The leisurely look on your face as soon as you enter the door means you are not the type to drink this kind of wine. More updates will be added, and 3 updates are guaranteed today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 320. Su Tong nodded thoughtfully, wrote down the boss's words word for word, and put away the drink. "Be taught. Don't dare, please help yourself, sir." The shopkeeper cupped his hands and continued to make plans. After Su Tong got the wine, he walked out of the door. He looked back at the wine shop and made sure that the boss was not following. His face changed, he held the wall and uncovered half of the mask and started to vomit. "Stand up. Can you stop vomiting? Drinking this wine is like a Sun Wukong burrowing into the stomach of his sister-in-law." Su Tong endured it until he came out and dared to spit out the wine. Although the shopkeeper was right, Su Tong still didn't think there was anything delicious about this stuff. However, since May reminded herself, she probably didn't deliberately deceive him to suffer. With this mentality, Su Tong took out the note and searched around the ghost market in the direction indicated above. And finally found the mysterious little shop she mentioned in a remote corner. The front of the house is very inconspicuous, and the signboard above also gives people an outdated feeling from the 1980s. Shuiji Grocery Store. Su Tong gently opened the door curtain of the shop and took a look. He saw several large tables placed in the dark room, some were empty, and some were 3 or 5 people sitting together peeling peanuts and drinking wine. There were only 1 or 2 people sitting sparsely on a few tables, and the room was so quiet that it didn't look like a grocery store at all, but more like an elderly tea and card club. When they saw someone walking in, everyone in the room just looked up and then continued to do their own business. There was no one waiting in this place, and there wasn't even a person on the counter. If it weren't for the fact that the name Shuiji Grocery Store was written on the note, Su Tong would have doubted whether he had gone to the wrong place. "I just found a place to sit," and after a while, another person came in from the door. This person also wore a mask on his face and was obviously a player. Su Tong noticed the other party, and the other party obviously noticed him, and was obviously stunned, as if he was surprised that there were other players in this place. The exhibition is a magical place. You may say how big it is, but it's actually not that big. If you stand at the highest point, you can overlook the entire exhibition, which is about the size of a small town. But if you want to say that he is small, you would be completely wrong. There are many shops here, and they are not as bleak as the ghost market. If you enter an inconspicuous store, you may not know how much space there is inside. Even now, few players dare to say that they have explored the entire ghost city. And in this inconspicuous place, few people come. Occasionally, some people come in to take a look, but they don't understand the point and leave after a while. So seeing other players there, the other party was also very surprised. However, accidents were accidents. After nodding towards Su Tong, he strode straight to the busiest table, and then sat directly in the middle, chatting with each other. After chatting for a while, the other party took out an old incense burner from the prop book and placed it on the table. Several people at the same table looked at it and winked at each other. Then they saw a man wearing a hat, looking towards the player. Stretching out his arms, he dropped his wide sleeves with a flick of his hand. Why? This is called price comparison. It is an old custom. The price is determined by specific gestures on the sleeve. For example, if you say this thing costs 40, the index finger to the little finger is 4, and then the thumb and index finger are pinched to make a 0. If you want 50, just give a thumbs up alone and pinch 0. Anyway, the two sides were slowly groping and gesticulating, and outsiders had no idea what the price was. In reality, this old custom is no longer common. As for whether it still exists, yes, it can still be seen occasionally in the livestock markets in Shaanxi and Shangzi. Of course, people nowadays don't have such big cuffs, so they are covered with cloth. After the two fumbled around for a while, the man in the hat seemed a little dissatisfied, and in the end the transaction didn't seem to be successful. No transaction was successful, and the player did not leave. Instead, he sat there and chatted with a few people. Interesting. Su Tong sat aside and watched, and when he saw this, he probably understood what was going on here. Although this place is a grocery store, it is not a place where you can just buy and sell things casually. We need to get closer to each other first and reach a certain level before we can proceed with the transaction. In short, it's a bit like fate. It's no wonder that few people come to this place. Although the time at the exhibition is not the same as the time outside, there are only 4 hours outside here a day, but after all, it is limited. Not everyone is willing to spend time in this place. However, Su Tong liked this place very much. Anyway, it was still early before the time agreed with Gao Zhou. He took out the hookah pipe in his hand and slowly put the shredded tobacco on it. This shredded tobacco came from Gao Zhou's father Gao Tian not long ago. Put a new cut of tobacco that I found for him. It is said that outsiders cannot buy this kind of tobacco, and even those with money cannot buy it. Su Tong has never had time to taste it. Now that he has the leisure, he might as well taste it. I saw clearly organized tobacco leaves, which glowed a faint golden yellow under the light. I picked up a handful with my fingers and kneaded them gently, and I could smell a unique tobacco leaf aroma. It's hard to explain how to call this fragrance. It's thick, but not pungent. It has a fermentation feeling eroded by time. When you pinch it between your fingers, it doesn't feel dry or hard, but feels as soft as young grass. After putting shredded tobacco on it, Su Tong used a small fire to bake it. When the tobacco leaves gradually carbonized under the baking of the flame, a wisp of green smoke floated up, and the air seemed to be filled with the fragrance of the tobacco leaves. Su Tong took a light sniff and his eyes lit up. However, he did not smoke it directly. Instead, He put the water pipe in his hand and waited for a while. This water pipe smoke is not smoked with the mouth like other cigarettes, but has a smoke storage device. During the process, let the smoke stay in the chimney for a while, and then slowly taste it after you feel that the chimney has gradually gained temperature. Su Tong didn't understand before, and he only wanted to have fun every time. Later, when Gao Tianfang saw this, he laughed and scolded him for wasting things. He also blamed Gao Zhou for being too impatient and not learning this thing properly, so Su Tong never understood this. The true meaning of water pipe smoking. Later, under the guidance of his senior brother, he gradually mastered the secrets. And the hookah in his hand also has many mysteries. As the pipe gradually warms up, the patterns and colors carved on it become more rounded, giving people a feeling of life even though it is a dead object. As he slowly took a deep breath, the smoke lingered between his lips and teeth. The warm smoke emitted a unique fragrance in his mouth. The taste was sublimated many times compared to cold smoke, and even more so than cigars. An extra layer of strong layering. Su Tong closed his eyes and felt the unique fragrance and temperature in the clouds of smoke. This feeling was like giving invisible time a layer of unique flavor, slowly tasting it in his mouth. Wearing the same. At this time, he suddenly felt the flow of smoke around him. He opened one eyelid and saw an old man wearing a shabby cotton padded jacket sitting next to him. The old man sat next to him, closed his eyes and rested his mind. From time to time, his nose took a deep breath on the smoke next to Su Tong, and he looked like he was enjoying it more than he did. Su Tong was happy when he saw this, and took out his tobacco and handed it over. "Uncle, would you like a sip?" The old man looked at the cut tobacco and smashed it into his mouth. He carefully picked up a cut tobacco with his fingers and put it in his hand to look at it carefully for a moment. What a good thing! The leaves of this tobacco are of the finest lemon yellow. One tobacco plant can produce 5 or 6 slices is enough. Then he put the tobacco in his mouth, closed his eyes and said slowly, "Yeah. Honey, sandalwood powder, bamboo leaf green, and soybeans." After saying that, he took a light sniff at the shredded tobacco. "Okay, the lychee water should be mixed in when frying, and stir-fried slowly over low heat. This is real skill. After 3 months of fermentation, it's good stuff." After looking at it, tasting it, and smelling it, the old man actually calculated the production process of the tobacco leaf to almost 90% accuracy. It can be seen that the old man's level of attainments on the road of drug addiction is already extraordinary. "If you like it, I'll give you half," Su Tong said with a smile. He could see that the old man was extraordinary, so he just used this as a breakthrough. As for this shredded tobacco, although it is rare, it is not a difficult thing for Gao Tianfang. After all, the Gao family's local prestige and power are still extraordinary. No rewards for no merit. I appreciate your kindness. It's a blessing that I can take a puff of this tobacco. If you let me, an old man, have half of it, my life will be shortened," the old man said and took out a cigarette stick. Su Tong took a look. Although the old man was dressed in rags, the cigarette stick was unusual. The bamboo stick, the white jade mouth cover, and the smoking pot looked like it's brass. There is something special about this smoking pot. The copper pot has a white jade mouth. Copper has the effect of heat conduction and heat resistance. It takes half a pound of high-quality brass to make a smoking pot. The white jade mouth is white marble, which is soft and smooth in the mouth. The most difficult thing is that this pole is the most difficult to choose. The iron pole is white, the copper pole is the worst, the wooden pole is medium, and the bamboo pole is the best. It is not the kind of grown bamboo. It needs to be made with old bamboo roots and bamboo whips. The bamboo joints on the top need to be dense and the shape needs to be good. It is very difficult to find the right one. The old man's cigarette rod looks like he is old at first glance. The cigarette rod has a layer of glass-like texture from years of playing with it, and the dense and tangible bamboo joints add a bit of artistic beauty. One look at the state of this thing and you know that this thing is probably half the old man's lifeblood. Quickly pinching a handful of shredded tobacco, the old man's technique is also unique. He pinches it with his fingers and directly inserts it into the tobacco pot. After gently rubbing it in the pot a few times, he can rub it to make it soft at the top and soft at the bottom. After taking out the flint and roasting it for a while, he put it in his mouth and smoked it. After 2 puffs, the old man smashed his mouth and started talking to Sutong. Very few people come to this place. You must have something to ask for. Say, let's see, this old guy like me can still help. Or it is often said that the distance between men is often only a cigarette. Sutong was not polite when he heard the words. After explaining his purpose, the old man glanced away, took the cigarette pot in his hand and pointed at the man in the corner behind him who was holding a stone in his mouth and said, "Then you go find him, but this man it's hard to talk, so you have to be prepared." Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 321. Prepare. Sutong took a closer look and saw the rough porcelain bottle on the other side's feet, and his heart moved. That's it? He cupped his hands towards the old man, stood up first, and walked towards the man's table. He sat down at the table and glanced at the small plate in front of the man, only to see 2 round pebbles soaked in vinegar. The man picked one up with his chopsticks and put it in his mouth. He was either eating the stone or sucking on the taste. I took another look at the man, who looked like he was in his 40s. His face was unshaven, his hair was all knotted, and he had an indescribable fishy smell. It's hard to imagine how such a sloppy person could help him. Seeing Sutong sit down, the man frowned in displeasure and said, "Whatever you say, you fart." Seeing that the man was so direct, Sutong didn't waste any words. He took out the burning knife and put it on the table. 2 things, one is to find someone, and the other is to learn skills. Seeing the burning knife on the table, the man's eyes shone. He picked up a bottle, uncorked it, and poured it into his mouth. Sutong felt a pain in his stomach when he saw it. He almost couldn't bear it after drinking a glass. This man drank the whole bottle, which in his eyes was simply a kind of torture. But the man drank the entire bottle of fire knife in one go. His face turned red, but there was nothing strange about him. Instead, he let out a long, muffled burp that made him feel comfortable. After drinking 1 bottle, it seemed that he was still not satisfied. He picked up another bottle, but this time he didn't feel bored after 1 sip. He poured it into the cup, put a stone in his mouth and sucked it for a few mouthfuls before saying, "It's not difficult to find someone. Pen, write down your name, age, and physical characteristics on a piece of paper. In short, write down everything you know, the more detailed the better. As for learning." After the man raised his head and looked Sutong up and down, there was a sparkle in his eyes. "Interesting, someone has forcibly changed your destiny. However, destiny can be changed, but destiny cannot be changed. If you want to learn this craft, I'm afraid you don't have the talent." After saying this, the man didn't waste any time. He took out a book and threw it to Sutong. "My Hanzanbei, just call me Zhangbei. From now on, I will come here every other month and bring me 2 bottles of wine each time. Just roast chicken. If you don't understand, just ask me." The corner of Sutong's mouth twitched, thinking, have I been blackmailed? I learned a trade from him and also took care of food and drink. However, the price was quite fair, and Sutong agreed without much thought. Pick up the book and throw it into the prop book. Easy to count plum blossoms. It was really just a book, but something was always better than nothing. Sutong regarded it as a task and accepted it happily. 1 code equals 1 code. If you find someone, you have to pay extra. A bronze badge. Hanzanbei continued after seeing Sutong's acceptance. Ken. Su Tong nodded. He wanted to know where his good brother Chang Liuju went after escaping from the mental hospital. Although he suspected that he had become a player, there was no movement after so long. So I still want to find out how this guy is doing now. After all, he is his good brother. Seeing Su Tong's promise, Hansen Bei picked up the note written by Su Tong on the table. After taking a look at the name on it, he took out 6 copper coins from his satchel and threw the coins into the turtle shell. Shake it randomly a few times. Ding ding ding. There was a sound, and the coins fell on the table, arranged neatly in a row. Hansen Bei fiddled with it a few times, and after rearranging it, he couldn't help but frown. This person is very troublesome. Trouble, can't you find it? Su Tong frowned, thinking that if he couldn't find it, there would be no need to learn from this guy. No, unexpectedly, Hansen Bei pinched his fingers. I mean, you have to pay more. After the final bargaining, Su Tong could only reluctantly hand over the price of a silver badge. After careful divination, Hansen Bei said, Chang Wugu, just because of this name, I am doing business at a loss today. This guy should be in the north now. Judging from the divination, it may be Jilin or Jilin may be Heilongjiang. After he finished speaking, he frowned and said, the hexagram Huozi Sui, hexagram, looks upward. This person is in a difficult start-up period at the moment. If he can be like-minded and trust each other, the goal can be achieved. But most of the successes at first are small things. Small things accumulate. Great things can be accomplished. Things are accomplished by working together and failed by dissent. Su Tong couldn't help but nodded when he heard this. Now it seems that this guy is still in the script world, but if he is asked to cooperate with others, Su Tong doesn't think this guy can do it. But I finally have a general understanding, and my trip is not in vain. At this time, when he saw Hansen Bei starting to drink with the fire knife in his hand again, he couldn't help but frowned and asked, is this wine really so delicious? Ha, haven't you drank before? Hansen Bei looked at him with a smile but not a smile. When you understand, you can drink this bottle of wine again, but when you drink and understand, I think that will be the time you regret the most. Su Tong didn't understand what this guy meant. Since the goal had been achieved, he wouldn't stay here any longer. He had to go to meet Gao Zhou. He and Gao Zhou had already agreed to have dinner at the Lion Building in the Convention and Exhibition Center. Su Tong obviously came early, because he initially calculated the time and thought that it would take several hours to process the large number of basic encyclopedias. I didn't expect that these basic encyclopedias were so popular and were sold out in a short time. This could be considered a small mistake on his part, but a benign mistake. Since he came early, Su Tong didn't just sit there. He went to the sweet box, lit a stick of yellow incense, and asked the 3 guys behind him to come out. The food at the exhibition is not cheap, especially the food at this lion house. The set menu starts at 5 o'clock, not including drinks. But there was a reason why Gao Zhou insisted on choosing the meeting place here. Because the food at Lion House is absolutely delicious. I don't know if it is a unique thing in the world, but after Su Tong ordered a super luxurious set meal with a script score of 20 points, he took Da Ya and the 3 of them to eat happily. The meal didn't last even 5 minutes, and the 4 of them ate it up like a storm. After eating and drinking, Su Tongke asked Dia what the characteristics of the Northeast were, and he might go there in the future. Although Dia is a female fox, she speaks in a down-to-earth manner, reporting to the headmaster, our poor mountains and rivers, apart from being poor, there is really nothing special about us. After Dia finished speaking, her eyes rolled around. Oh, nothing more than heavenly dragon meat, chicken stewed with mushrooms, green onions rolled into sauce pancakes. It's all in vain to ask Dia to talk about humanistic features, but when it comes to eating, this smelly fox has a lot of food in his mouth, and he immediately becomes energetic. Su Tong listened for a long time and asked, is this girl here to tell him the names of dishes in crosstalk? Why does it sound like everything is food? Stop, stop, let's not talk about food. Tell me about your brother Ma from the Northeast. Even if I am idle, I am idle. Although I am an independent official, I am somewhat related to the Northeast. Besides, I have accepted the Vixen de Ya, and I will inevitably have a cause and effect with the Northeast immortal family in the future. So it's better to inquire more and understand more. Although De Ya understood that it was not a good thing for Su Tong to suddenly ask about these things, due to the authority of the leader, he still told everything he knew. In fact, what De Ya knows is still limited. Most of it is information that Su Tong knows. If there is something different, it is that among the great immortals of their Hu family, there is an ancestor who has never been born. It is said that this ancestor is the Lao Taishan of their Hu family. He has vast supernatural powers and boundless magical power. He has enjoyed the incense for thousands of years since the Yuan dynasty and is already on the verge of becoming an immortal. Later, I don't know what happened. The old lady suddenly retreated into seclusion. Seeing that the position of headmaster was passed down, she disappeared into Tishan. It is said that only on the 1st and 15th day of the lunar month, the elders of the clan can go into the mountain to pay homage. It is precisely because of this old lady that the Hu family can become the head of the 5 families. Mr. Tishan. Su Tong thought about it for a while and felt that it would be better not to run to the Northeast recently. Let his unlucky brother just let him cause trouble in the Northeast for a while. Hey, why did you come so early? At this time, Gao Zhou, who came on time, finally rushed over. After seeing that Su Tong and the others had already eaten the set meal, he couldn't help but be a little confused, wondering if he had remembered the time wrong. Su Tong's face turned red. Of course he would not tell Gao Zhou that he had made a mistake. He did not expect that those basic encyclopedias would be so popular. He just changed the topic and asked with concern, "You walked around the exhibition a lot, I guess you gained a lot." Su Tong and Gao Zhou chose to act separately this time, each with their own tasks. Su Tong mainly dealt with the basic encyclopedia and went to Shuaji grocery store to take a look. In addition to choosing suitable prop cards to improve himself, Gao Zhou also shoulders an important task, which is to find out one thing for himself, all the information and news about certified players. Since the last time he played against Jing Shaocheng, Su Tong has deeply understood the power of certified players. Even if he uses all his cards, it will be difficult to hurt him at all. Faced with absolute power, no matter how many tricks he uses, he will eventually be useless. From that time on, he decided that he must improve as soon as possible no matter what, at least when he faces a certified player next time, he will have the full body and the strength to retreat. Gao Zhou took a sip of water, took out a small book from the prop book and put it on the table. "I heard about it, and I have some good news for you." Good news. Su Tong looked at Gao Zhou, and after confirming that the good news was literal, he only heard Gao Zhou whisper, "Actually, you are very close to the conditions for becoming a certified player."